listening to the Hometown Losers, the St. Louis Sports Podcast, with Josh, Adam, and OJ.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hometown Losers Podcast. We are at session number 53, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Adam and OJ. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great here. I'm glad to be back. Another hot week here. Well, about to be even hotter week here in St. Louis, but definitely ready for the weekend. How's it going for you, OJ?
Oh, I am in the same boat as you. I am also very ready for the weekend. And yeah, now that I got my gutters all cleaned up and everything, now it's not going to rain probably forever. So
Same here, man. Same here. So I totally understand. That's exactly how it goes. I always say the same thing, like when I wash the car, usually whenever it starts raining afterwards, but that's how it always works.
It's actually very funny. Like, it was so hot. It was so hot yesterday, and it was like 92 or whatever with the heat index at 97. And I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like cutting my grass today. And I really didn't need to be cut, but, like I just need to make sure that I'm doing it so it doesn't get too terribly long with my stupid electric lawnmower. And so I'm like, you know what? I'll do it on tomorrow, today. And so I'm like, yeah, the Weather Channel shows it's going to be cooler. They fucking lied. It was 93 with a heat index of 98. And I'm like, son of a bitch. Whatever. Just get it done.
There you go. Better to get it done now until later because it's only going to get worse.
Absolutely. Yeah. It almost even looks like it might storm tonight out here.
Yeah, they're calling for a few storms around like I think 10 or 11 o'clock in my area at least, which means that Adam, you'll probably get it a little bit earlier than me, and then OJ, you'll probably get a little after me, depending from where we're at in the geographical locations.
I see some up there, some flash or heat lightning. It looks like maybe. So I don't know if that means anything, but yeah.
I guess I got nothing right now.
Do.
Right. All right, guys. Well, let's talk. Speaking of heat, let's talk about the Cardinals. Since they are, they're picking things back up, right? They were one of the hottest teams in baseball. They've kind of tippered off a little bit, yeah. But a quick update.
They won today, so that's a positive note to read into.
Yeah, especially against Pittsburgh. You got to win those Central games. So a quick update, they are now 33-34, which is 4-3 since last session. At least they have a winning record. They are now second in the Central, which is moving them up one position. Last session, they were in third. We are 6.5 games behind Milwaukee. Last session that we had, we were only 6, so Milwaukee has gained another half game on us. However, we are still 7th in the NL. We are 13 games back on the Phillies. We have gained a half game on the Phillies. We are now 14th in the MLB. We've moved up 4 positions. And we are, exactly. I mean, 14th is pretty respectable in the MLB at this point.
No doubt. Especially
14
with
playoff spot.
Spot. Yeah, right. And we are 14 games back behind the Yankees, which we have, I think I might have read that right. No, they gained a half game on us since last session. But to OJ, what you just brought up, we are now tied for the last wild card spot with the Giants. That moves us up one position from last time and a half game better than last time. So, I mean, I think this team can definitely get some stuff done, but it's going to be kind of excuse me, I was trying to hold that in for a very long time. I was just like, all right, I can feel it coming. I'm like, my nose started burning. I'm like, I just gotta sneeze. But I think that I don't know if this team is going to be able to stay consistent enough, and that's why there's a lot of talks about the Cardinals, on the trade deadline specifically. And there's a lot of analysts and sports writers out there that say that we're going to be sellers, and then there's the other side of it essentially is that we're going to be buyers. So. I want to start with you, Adam, here. I mean, do you believe we're going to be buyers or sellers of the trade deadline? Now, obviously, we got a while to go, but this is something we definitely need to look forward.
Yeah, coming back to the point, just to address real quick the consistency, because I just want to address that. Like, I was looking at the last 10 games, and we were like, prior was like we're like 5-5. We're playing around 500 ball right now. And we have seen some flashes of that offensive strength here and there, but the overall consistency is an issue, and especially we see it with the pitching staff for sure. They're particularly volatile. You know, that's a problem here. Now, looking at, there are a few key players though that I think going into the trade deadline is going to be interesting, especially looking at possible moves, maybe with Nolan Arenado.
God,
Do
please
we?
no.
Well, I'm being honest.
Yeah,
There's
I
been
know.
rumors about trading some high value players like Arenado for the long term vision. Not necessarily for this season, maybe not next season, but what do we need to do? Because the fact is, before that's the point. You understand where I'm going with this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
What can we do to plan for the future? Because right now we're not planning for championship rings anytime soon. We're not planning to win any World Series pennants in the next few years. The fact is that we're hopeful that we can get maybe a wild card spot, and that's the best we can land right now, is not really where we want to be. That's not where we're used to being as Cardinal fans, for sure. So how do we become more competitive? And there are some moves that we need to make, especially, we need to start talking about, I know once we go back to the previous offseason, we started talking about, pitching, and there wasn't really a whole lot of movement there that really solidified that rotation. And I think that we need to revisit that a bit. That's a problem. We need some more top tier starters to address some of those gaps in the pitching staff. And the fact is, we also have our staff in general is aging. We have one of the oldest, staffs in the majors. I'm not sure what all the statistics are at the top of my head, but overall though, we need to. I'm looking at this as we need to be a team that is looking for bright young talent and utilizing what we have available in our arsenal to position ourselves to make us strong contenders in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things that needs to be discussed for sure, is that we went from a very young, healthy, when you take a look at least the pitching, and I would say bullpen, but I was more referring to like the starting pitchings and stuff like that, even though obviously the bullpen is part of it too. And all of a sudden now we're like ancient, so it's just funny how things rapidly changed on a dime. And I think that is something, and I'd really we do have a few prospects that will eventually make it to the major leagues, like Tank Hens and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
But how far are they off, and at what point will they get on? Can we trade for a younger, good pitcher or something like that? That's going to be definitely something that is going to be discussion if we are, buyers at the trade deadline. OJ, I kind of want to get your perspective, especially on that when it comes around the age of our pitchers. What's your thought process, and also, do you think we'll be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline?
Well, honestly, so I think as long as they don't completely collapse, they're going to be looking to, like, if they're in the playoff race still when the trade deadline comes around, they'll probably look to add a center fielder. And then I was thinking, maybe a relief pitcher, like a solid, mid-tier kind of, not like super low level, but like a mid-level, mid-leverage kind of guy. Because, they're missing Keenan Middleton. He's going to be out for the year. And I think they're kind of counting on him to provide some innings, some quality innings out of the pen. So they might look to get another reliever for some quality innings. Although you do have some injured guys that will be coming back, like Riley O'Brien. I don't know if we even really got to see him pitch at all in the regular season so far, but he should be pretty good too, potentially. So there's some of that there. You might get a fifth starter also, depending on.
I need it.
Well, depending on whether Andre Palante can hold the job down, basically. And I think we maybe talked a little bit about this last time, but
we did.
He's now had 2 good starts and 1 really bad start. So if he can, and the thing is, the 2 good starts he had, I think he went 6 innings or 6 innings plus with 1 or no runs. So he's had 2 great starts and 1 really shitty start. And honestly, if that's your 5th starter, that's a good start.
That's what you take. Yeah, 100%. That's what you take. And to your point though, like if you can find something for cheap or like kind of like a team is trying to like throw away a player that is a more veteran, fifth starter essentially, definitely take them. But to your point, you're also not going to hinder what you have currently, especially in that fifth position. You know what I mean? As long as you're competitive, it's rather than just having a bullpen game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the thing is they've never really given Andre Palante a fair shake as a starter. And he has like the one thing that he has like a pretty nice four-seamer that has some really unique qualities about it. And it's like the first step of like being a good starter is having a good fastball. And then, he's got a decent arsenal now. It really does come down to whether he can locate everything consistently enough to really utilize it all properly. But he does have the potential to be a guy that could, be an asset in a major league rotation. So, yeah, I mean, if he falters, then I think they might turn to the trade market for a fifth starter. But they have to do something because it's 2 years in a row now where they've just not had somebody for a fifth starter for a while. So like,
right.
The thing with Palante is he did go back down early in the season and was working on stuff. So, and that's my point is he has made some changes in the minors this year. So there is a real possibility that something good could happen. So I don't mean to ramble there, but that's what I see them doing. I would expect them to not completely collapse also. Because their offense has kind of pretty much just woken up, and their pitching's been pretty solid. I don't really have a huge issue with the age of our starters. I did see a Fangraphs article out there where it turns out that younger pitchers get hurt more than older pitchers, and the reason doesn't really matter. The point is, because it might be just, the older guys are the guys that are the most durable. They made it through, It's like
and they know how to take care of their bodies a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, and like as far as like ligaments and stuff go, I've heard that different guys have different size ligaments and stuff. Like I've heard theories because that one guy's like maybe like Nolan Ryan had like a freakishly huge like ligament in his arm or something. That's why he's able to throw so much and all that. So we're still learning in that area. So right now it's kind of nice to just be like, well, these guys have been durable in their career. Decent chance they'll still be durable for us. Like the real risk with them is that they just don't have it anymore, right? But clearly, right. Gibson, they do have it still. So I really like. I think those are solid stock.
Is the question because most of our starting pitching staff is like 35 plus now. I think, with the exception of Andre Palante, I think most of our rotation is like at least 35 plus. So for how much longer can we get? You know what I mean, out of a pitcher? Especially starting
about, like, years down the road, I don't think they're really counting on either of those guys because remember they're only signed to 1 year contracts with an option for.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Lance Lynn is near the end of his career for sure.
Gibson and
yeah.
Oh, we'll have to find starters from somewhere.
For sure, and that's what I'm looking going forward. So yeah, I mean, it'd be one thing to, looking at if we want to be sellers for the sake of trying to salvage something since we are hovering around the 500 mark for this year or potentially next year. It would be interesting, but I think we'd have to start looking at possible trades like I was mentioning Arenado or Helsley where you get one of those guys, or potentially if there's anybody that has any that's nearing the end of, expiring deals at they're at the end of that. Basically getting something out of them before we lose in free agency, even if it's, a draft pick or anything, hell. So I guess my thing is looking more long term.
If we were going to trade guys like that, I agree. Helsley would be a good one because he is, he's still under pretty good. He's really cheap right now. I don't know how many years he's got left still. But
he's got this year and next year, I think. I'll look that up real quick while you finish your point. Sorry.
He's cheap, and he's one of the best closers.
I think he's on a 1 year contract. I could be wrong, but I thought he is. Yeah. I think he's only got a 1-year contract right now.
Is he on arbitration?
Right, yeah.
Is he in arbitration still though? Like,
he is arbitration eligible, yes.
Okay,
eligible.
so that'll keep his costs down. Is my point. He's not going to be on the free market. So,
which, by the way, real quick before you continue your point, can we just agree that arbitration is one of the best things that has happened in MLB? Because the fact that like it's fair to the players, but it's also fair to the organization as well. Like, hey, you know, this player could be absolutely outstanding, like Jack Flaherty was for a minute. You know, remember that? I mean, Jack Flaherty was amazing for a minute, but the Cardinals were like, hey, slow your roll. You haven't shown that kind of consistency forever, but you're wanting that type of money. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's meet a middle ground. I love the fact that it's a third party too. I like it. I like it a lot.
It is. It totally makes sense because that way it gives both the players and the teams a chance to basically say, here's what we think you're worth, and basically like come to an agreement. Whereas, you know, instead of letting one party try to dictate the whole conversation, you know what I mean? So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, like what you see in the NBA, NFL, NHL, everywhere else. Yeah, I mean, I think that because you need to definitely do that because there's no salary cap restrictions as well. So, you know, teams can just, you know, spend whatever the hell they want. But again, I like that a lot. So.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is like they can't come to an agreement or whatever. Basically, from my understanding, is it's up to the arbiter basically to decide then on that proposal as well.
I think the arbiter has to pick either one. They can't like assign their own.
Correct. They have to pick one of the two numbers, basically.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yes, they can offer a recommendation, but it is not something that is going to be unless both the player and the team agree on it. And typically, from my understanding, that's kind of what the arbitrator can do. Is says, hey, so just for example, this player is looking for a 3-year deal. The team only wants to give him a 1-year deal. The arbitrator goes, hey, let's split the difference here and give him a 2-year deal, right?
Well, they can avoid, obviously, too, if they're like. Where if they're like, say, the club, like Cardinals are at 4 and say Helsley's at 6, and they can't agree, and they're like, okay, we're going to go arbitration, but then Helsley's like, well, I might lose the $2 million, so I'll agree with what, like halfway, I'll cut them in the middle, you know, cut the loss to avoid it.
It's a recommendation, but once one of the parties involved, whether it's the team or the player, says no to that, then it goes to, okay, I'm going to take what the player wants or what the team is offering. Yeah. And again, I think it's a very good system.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because you can make money on it too. Because like I remember Marcell Ozuna was getting like $10 million per in arbitration when he played for us.
Stupid. Yeah.
But well, my point is, the good players, they still make good money in arbitration, even though they can't go to the free market. Maybe they don't make quite as much as they would.
Well,
but
that's the thing, is it's fair to both sides generally. That's the reason why it's like it doesn't try to favor one side or the other.
It definitely helps like small market teams actually have good players for a while.
Right.
And I think that effect shouldn't be understated, but rising tide and all that, right?
Yep.
So
Agreed.
All their paychecks are bigger because the smaller market teams can compete better. There's a bigger pie to go around. But anyway, so yeah, but I was wanting to say though, I do think like Goldschmidt and Arenado might be hard to trade right now because their contracts, like they're probably not playing to the value of their contracts. Right now they're getting paid like 2 middle of the lineup guys, but they're both hitting like league average, or Goldschmidt less. Arenado's around league average. And they both of them, their defense is declining a little bit. Like Arenado's actually muffing stuff now and all that, like it's
and the offense we're definitely seeing from the Goldschmidt side for sure overall.
Right.
Well, really.
And that's where
right now, especially Goldschmidt. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think that to your point, OJ, I think that it would be really hard to trade Goldschmidt right now because he's only got this year left on his deal. He's obviously approaching the 40 mark. He's defensively, he's solid, but he's not like what he was. Arenado has a few more years. As you said, like he's hitting a little bit better, a little bit more consistency, and he still does have a way. His defensive like upside is much higher than Goldschmidt, right? So like if I'm a rival organization and I want one of those players to fit in the middle of my lineup I'm going after Arenado all day long. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
Goldschmidt,
I'm not even looking at Goldschmidt.
I'm looking at Goldschmidt. I'm trying to pull up his contract. Did they actually agree to one? Because I thought that his contract was going to come to an end at the end of this year, which it looks like it
I
is.
said, yeah.
Didn't come to agreement. So yeah, there's a solid chance he's not playing for us this year.
Right,
exactly
right.
Comes back for
be locked into contract until through 2027.
Yeah, and like the other problem is you can't have your first baseman like being a sub league average hitter. Like that just doesn't work. There's too many guys that can play reasonably good first base and hit well. Like
exactly.
I don't know if Burleson can, but that might be the ideal succession plan because then that frees your DH back up to put Contreras in. Because right now you need Burleson's bat in your lineup, but his defense kills you in the outfield. Like if he could be a solid first baseman, that would be huge because he's showing this year that he's a pretty good hitter. He's finally getting the results he should have gotten. I mean, against the great Paul Skeens, he got like 2 hits off of him. Like, he's 20, but everyone's already putting him in the Hall of Fame, so whatever. Just like Elliot De La Cruz, Mr.
Exactly right.
It's like low 70s, high 60s WRC plus the last 2 months now.
Yeah.
Hey, hit a little bit, dude, because there's lots of glove for shortstops out there that are fast. But yeah. Anyway, there you go. Burleson's a good hitter. If he could play first base well, that would be huge for our roster construction. So that's what I hope. That I would be like doing everything in my power to get somebody working with him on that footwork and everything, and like picking the ball and all that shit. So, yeah, that would be very nice.
Yeah, and I mean I think that's a good point too. OJ is, I think that's what really like Mo and the Cardinals are going to have to do is look at even going into the trade deadline, you kind of need to somewhat soft project the next 2 to 3 years too. So you have a better idea of like, okay, this player most likely is not going to be here. This person is going to be our backfiller, or do we want to try to go find that guy? You know what I mean? So it's something, of a little bit of a chess game in that where you need to, it's not like you're a different team where you have a younger roster, but your players are also under contract. So you're like, okay, I'm going to add. This might be a supplement that you're going to be doing. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is going to be addition now, but it's really going to be a replacement for later down the road. I think that's a very good point and a strategy that can be utilized. So there's 2 major things I've been I've been seeing when it comes to the Cardinals, and multiple sources have talked about both of these. So Andrew Kittredge on the way out. So this is if the Cardinals are sellers. Go on.
I'd say, yeah, he's a good one. He would be a good one to trade. Yeah. I think would be interested in him.
Right. And right now he's got an ERA of 2.37, whip of 1, which is very good. He's 9.5 in K/9. He's got 13 holds. He's been the main setup guy for Helsley, but he is a free agent at the end of the year. So I think that is, a trading piece that a lot of people are talking about. And again, it's weird. I haven't seen really any talks about Arenado or Goldschmidt at this point in time, or really anybody else. It's really been Andrew Kittredge has kind of been like the main source of topic, which is not something that I think really anybody saw coming this way. You know what I mean? But the other thing is, if we are going to get rid of him, what are we going to be getting back? You know what I mean? Like, we're kind of needing him at that point. I just don't know if you're going to be willing to give him up, and who would want him, and what would you get for it? OJ, what's your thoughts on Kittredge here? would you want to keep him? Or like, again, what if kind of give us like an idea? Yeah, go on. Sorry.
If we're selling, then yeah, he's one of the guys you definitely trade, because like he said, he's on an expiring contract. It's like the perfect. And every contending team needs, well, not every, but a lot of them think they need more bullpen pieces. So like Because I mean, that's like the number one like finishing touch a contending team puts on their team is like, let's really shore up that bullpen and make sure we're good to go for the playoffs.
Especially like people that can handle high leverage situations. Even if you're not using them in the 8th or 7th, you're sliding them in 5th to 6th. But if they have that experience, that you're definitely going to want that 100%.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there'd definitely be a market for him, like multiple teams interested. And they also know they're not committed to him past this year. So they know he's already having a good year. So it's you could be a lot more certain he'll perform for you that way this season. And then they don't have to they're done with him after. Like that flexibility there is valuable too to teams. So I don't really want to, I suck at like just throwing trades out there. I'm not that good at like valuing stuff like in draft picks and whatnot.
Yeah,
so
no, I get it. Yeah.
I think that like baseball trade value site is down now too or something. So I don't think we can even use that. But yeah, I mean, he could get you something of actual value back, though. I will say that. Like if you traded him, it would be something not bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm. Nothing to scoff at kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like you probably could get like a legit prospect, depending on how far away from the majors you're wanting to go. You could probably get a legit prospect for him at least.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go to you. What's your idea on Kittredge, being traded away? And actually following up with OJ's point here, would you want a prospect or would you rather want an MLB ready player right now, specifically for the Cardinals?
I'm fine with getting rid of Kittredge. Really, I mean, I'm not seeing a whole heck of a lot of him, especially that recent start that he had the other night and was not the greatest sounding by any means. I would look at probably a prospect going forward, but then again, this goes back to my point of I'm looking at more of not necessarily a hard reset, but more of a we need to do more of a reset, I think, than we did in the off season. Because I think that's one of the mistakes we made last year is that we were not really big time sellers, or at least selling enough, in my opinion. I think that we're a little light on that. I think that we could have made some bolder moves. And I'm afraid that we're probably going to fall right back in that trap again. I mean, granted, we are playing 500, but I think this is our opportunity if we really wanted to make a statement, especially for maybe even next year. Our opportunity to make it, to actually have some bigger signings is now more so than just with the status quo. I guess I'm kind of getting tired of the status quo, because it's not. We're not filling seats, and I understand part of that is the fact is, our budget, I'm sure, has taken a direct hit with the Bally thing and everything else, but we're not putting butts in seats either. People are losing interest in the sport in general. So what is it that Mo and I should say Mo and Co are going to do realistically to breathe some new light into this team? And I think that it's going to take more than just a simple little sell like with pitchers. You know what I mean? Right. That's just my take on it.
Well, I don't think they're going to ever do like a full rebuild. Like, I guess that's what you're wanting them to do.
Not necessarily a full reset, but more of a reset than we had in the off, because there was no real movement, no real positive movement. I didn't move the needle, I should say. Maybe I shouldn't say a reset, but more moving the needle. For us, I didn't feel like there was really any of that in the off season whatsoever.
I'm just saying,
I don't think that we need a full reset by any means, because the fact is we are playing 500 ball. So we don't need a reset. If we were, at the bottom of the heap, if we were, in last place and we finish in last place, then okay, now we've had 2 terrible seasons back to back. That's when you start having that conversation. But I still think that we need to make a bigger impact. Like I think it was the Yankees a few years back. They were struggling like this, and they were bigger sellers at the trade deadline. and that was in like 2016, 2017. I think it was 2016, and they were bigger sellers in 2016. They came around in 2017, and you could see they actually started turning things around quite a bit. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but the fact of the matter is, I think that we have enough pieces here to restructure it a bit and fill those gaps a little bit better than what we've been doing as far as plugging those.
Tell me, like, what do you think? Who do you think we should get rid of? Like, because on the of the guys on the like that aren't part of the core, your relievers probably are the ones that'll get you the most back. But like, sounds to me like you're talking about trading core guys to try and get some other core guys back our way and kind of shift the way the whole thing looks. Is that right?
Well, to a certain extent, yeah, that is partially going to be what it is. It's because we're going to have to chip away, especially where if we want to plan in the long term, we're going to have to make some bolder moves now for younger talent and prospects going forward in the future, where we're going to be able to look at their replacements, but we can also look at opportunities where we can utilize that now before we are in, basically in a place like, where we were last year, where we were at the very bottom of the heap. My point is, try to utilize what we have now to plan for a more successful future, because I don't really see a future long-term plan right now. Is my, you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, so do you think you want to trade like Wilson Contreras, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman? Probably not Mason Wynn, I assume, but
not Mason,
definitely could get a lot for him.
yeah, that's for sure. But obviously Contreras is going to be a tough one right now, of course, with the injury and whatnot as well.
Easily the best hitting catcher in the league the last couple of years. Some team's gonna fucking be like, "Oh, give me that!" Like I got no.
Sure,
right?
But it's gonna
They'll
be
take
tough
a flyer
right
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely right now going into this trade deadline. It's gonna be tough for him right now, just with the injury. Trying to trade off one of those guys. But looking at, you mentioned Gorman, which I know that would certainly upset some folks.
That would piss me off. That's my guy.
Yeah. That would certainly piss a lot of people off. But the point is, I mean, if I'm looking at this, we're gonna have to get a little bit shaky here. I shouldn't say shaky. We're gonna have to get a little more uncomfortable. Or sharp out.
Yeah.
I think that's the word I'm looking for. A little bit more uncomfortable if we want to make some serious improvements in the future. I understand it's never an easy decision to make that decision now, because you want to win here and now. But the point is that we're not going to be a winning team right now. While we have some great core guys, the point of them is that we want a championship worthy team that's at the top of our division. And that's going to probably piss some people off, because we're going to have to get rid of a few of those core guys to make that happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's just my take on it, is that I want to plan for a future success, not necessarily just stick with the status quo of today. Okay, well, we can settle for 500 baseball, and we're okay with it, with that. I'm not okay with that.
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily unreasonable, because, so if I was going to do it, I think I'd first think of trading Lars Nootbaar. And I don't want to trade Lars Nootbaar, but part of the reason we're in the predicament we're in is that he is getting hurt all the damn time.
Right. That's true. He's out again. Yeah. Just right now. Yep.
If he can never be on the field, he's not doing us any good, and we're filling his spot with Michael Ciani. You know what I mean? It's kind of tough. So to me, he might be a guy. He could get you a good player, a good MLB level player back for sure. Because some team's going to be willing to bet on the injury risk, right? Because I don't think he's gotten the I don't think he's gotten the injury-ridden type reputation yet. And he's also kind of a big star in Japan, so that adds some marketability. So you might be able to get like another core piece back by trading him away. That might be kind of an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the Dodgers are the ones that will take him because obviously with Shohei there.
Yeah. Load up on all the jobs.
They love to have, triple the coverage. I mean, I certainly want to play for the Dodgers, especially in the outfield, because it feels like, you're never going to get a chance to play. I mean, I'm sure they have a rotation that's ridiculous, out there. But the fact is, you're not going to be able to get, solid, play on a regular basis. But hey, I guess at the end of the day, you're playing for the Dodgers, so good for you. I guess you get your payday and your ring at the end of the day, I guess, right?
Well,
but
trade for him, he may very well not be needed by them.
yeah. I mean, of course, it's a good feeling, I guess, in that sense. But yeah, I agree. That's the kind of move that makes sense. I would agree with that. It would be a move that would probably upset a few people. But you know what? That's what baseball is. Sometimes you do have to shake things up a bit, because the fact is, like I said, it's all about what are we planning for in the future. That's what I want. I think that we're going to have to do something now if we want to be contenders in the next few years. I just don't see us having the farm system right now that's going to fill in all of those gaps, especially with some of our guys that are nearing their into their contracts. They'll be free agents or potentially into their careers as well. We need to utilize that a bit, to our advantage.
Absolutely.
So anyway.
The one player that I've been seeing a lot of, the sports writers and everybody kind of talking about for us acquiring if we are buyers, which hopefully we are buyers, at the end of at the trade deadline.
Well, I've seen
that means that we're obviously winning.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I that's why like Andrew Kittredge is as a sell piece. I've been seeing that a lot, and we might be buying and selling. Who knows, right? Just depends.
Well, it could be. I mean, we're at 500, so you could really go in either direction, right?
Right. So the player that I keep seeing linked to us in a potential trade at the trade deadline is Tyler Anderson from the Angels. So he's kind of like an ace for them, although he's not at the same time. He's 5-6 this season. That's not surprising since the Angels suck. He's got a 2.63 ERA, which is pretty good. 55 to 33 KW, whip of 1.15. And average teams are hitting 205 against him, so that's pretty good numbers. The thing is, he is 34 years old. He's a left-handed pitcher, and if the Cardinals are going to want him, he's still got 3 years left on his contract for $39 million, which is 13 obviously on average. So I'm not terribly too certain that that's a good trade piece for us. I mean, we kind of talked about it, needing or potentially like getting that fit. It depends on what we'd be giving up. You know what I mean? For somebody like that's old, or older, as I should say, 34 is not spring chicken, and it has 3 years left on the contract for 19 apiece. You know what I mean?
What did they say we'd be trading for him?
I didn't. So there was a couple. I'm trying to remember what they were. But a lot of people are just saying like this is because I think it's because we're so far out of the trade deadline at this point that they're like, oh, this is like just keep an eye on for rumors, not like, hey, this is what needs to be like happening, for this to be done. And I think a lot of writers don't know what the Cardinals are even going to do. So it's just like if they're buyers, this is who they're going to go who they should go after. And again, like if they're sellers, this is who they should move, right? Because again, we are riding in that line and we don't know where we're going to be. So I don't know what you would give up for him either. You know what I mean? It's not like, it's not like you're trading Newbar. You know what I mean? Because it's stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's terrible. That would be a terrible trade.
I wouldn't give up shit for him. I'm looking at his page on Fangraphs. Like you said, he's like 34. He's never really been a good pitcher. He had one really good year with the Dodgers in 2022, But other than that, he's been like an average, okay-ish kind of guy.
Yeah, that's why back of the rotation, I don't think you'd be giving up anything really for him unless it's like a no-name, like, a prospect that we are okay with getting rid of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess he could be some. The thing is, if you look at his actual, his ERA is pristine, but his expected ERA, his FIP, and his xFIP are all much higher. Like, he's definitely had some luck, and he's not striking anybody out. He has a low ground ball rate. His ground ball rate is 37%. So that's not really where you'd want to see it. But then, like I said, as far as his K rate, he's only 16% K rate, 10% walk rate. So he walks guys, low ground ball rate, and like, I don't know. Something tells he doesn't strike people out much. Like, he just sounds like a guy that's just getting ready to blow up in the second half.
Right.
Like he's gonna end the year with a 5 ERA. Like, we'll trade for him and we'll get his worst part of the year on him.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's why again
it's about to get hotter. Right. And he's had home run luck so far because his xFIP is higher than his FIP. And xFIP is just where you substitute average home run rate for what he's actually gotten, and that's higher. So that means he's had home run luck so far. So he'll start giving up more bombs when it gets warmer out. Yeah, I could see that guy going sideways. So I wouldn't trade anything for him for real.
Well, at the end of the day, I definitely think that, Mo should certainly feel like he's a bit in the hot seat for sure. He probably doesn't, because I'm sure he feels like everything's hunky-dory.
But extension. So
he's already planning on retiring at 25. Yeah. At the end of 25 anyway. Like, it's like if you put in your last 2 weeks at work, like, are you really worried about getting fired? Oh man.
Well, speaking of GMs moving on, let's talk about the Blues and actually move to the next segment here. So this is crazy, kind of thing I really believe was unexpected for most people. So Armstrong did sign an extension, and he will be in power as the GM for the Blues until the end of the 26th season. However, Steen was signed as a special assistant to the GM, and it sounds like Steen is going to take over once Doug Armstrong retires or moves on to a different franchise. What? Like, I don't think anybody really expected this.
I saw that Steen. They had an announcement. They said there was a big operational announcement they posted last night, and I was like, does this mean that Army's gone? That's what my first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah.
Is like whenever and it said major organizational announcement, and I'm like, okay, usually a major organizational announcement, that's you're talking either coach or GM or something. And I was like, well, obviously I'm not worried, concerned about the Bannister deal, because obviously that's all said, signed, sealed, delivered, it's done. So I'm like, it's got to be around Army, but I was not expecting this. And when I first saw it, I'm like, okay, somebody's trolling this. And it was funny, you even said the same thing, Josh. You're like, totally trolling. So I'm like, no way. And then I went to the Blues official pages, and I'm like, what? I mean, I know that he was working with us in a role, like he was working as in the developmental consultant role or whatever for some of the European players. Yeah. But I was not at all expecting him to be like, oh, hey, here's Steener coming in and he's going to take over as GM. I was like, whoa. Well, not something we were prepared or expecting, for sure.
He was definitely helping with scouting too, because and people say it online, the first 3 guys that we took of the draft were all from the Swiss League. So he's basically just scouting players for us. And so, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what he's doing. That's pretty much his official role. From I looked it up. He's officially the European player development consultant for the Blues. So, like you said, basically a scout. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, to tell you the truth, I was pretty surprised also, because it's a pretty big jump to go from scouting to being a GM.
Exactly right.
Holy shit! I think that's everybody's reaction.
He also apparently has been in more of a management role for a team in Sweden, a level in their 3rd division league. So he has had more of an upper management kind of a little bit of experience there. but like not much. So,
well, and let's face it, he's got a couple of years, obviously, and it's going to be. It's not one of those things like, okay, we're cutting ties, Steen, you're taking over. He's got a couple years where he's going to be special assistant to Army for sure. So he can work on this, and he actually has a lot of leadership skills already that we know of. Mm-hmm. And he has a lot of deep hockey knowledge. So I think that from my perspective, he would prioritize, like a lot of the player development and also a lot of the team cohesion that we really need, that we've been lacking as well.
I do like having a guy that's been in the trenches.
Yeah.
That's what to look for.
He brought us a fucking cup, It's like he knows how to go, he knows what it's like and what it takes to be a winning hockey team. He knows what it's like being at the bottom of the fucking barrel, the bottom in the mud.
Exactly. And also, like, further, so really what's going to happen is, like they said, Armstrong will be giving up the GM role 2 years from now, and Steen will take it over. But Armstrong will still maintain his title as president of hockey operations through 2029, I believe. So Steen will actually be under him at that point. So even longer than that, than 2 years, Steen will be able to have Armstrong to consult about stuff he may not know about. And then after that, after 2029, Steen will have had
several years
like 4 years like years working in the role. And
if he's working under him officially going into this next season now, that's going to be at least 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, I guess this will be the 2024. Yeah, so
5 years.
Definitely. So he'll have enough experience to where he'll have like the data, the non-fun stuff probably down pretty well by then, and so then he can just let his talent as an evaluator and having a high hockey IQ and all that stuff, he can let that shine. It's kind of an interesting situation. I feel pretty optimistic about it as well.
I do. I mean, he brings a lot of forward-thinking mindset, and I think it's very promising for our future and the leadership for sure. And I think that is something, honestly, whereas it helps Army as well in the PR game, because obviously a lot of people are out, like firearm,
for blood on him. Yeah.
They're out for blood. So this really helps soften things with him a bit for right now, where he can kind of have, what do you call it? A golden parachute per se, out. And the people, and he's not going to have, there's not going to be as many people calling for his head, because they see this move, and at least for now, I should say. Now next season might be different, but right now I think it certainly gives him a golden parachute out, and softens it a little bit for him. And also, as fans, we feel like, oh, hey, we have a future that we're optimistic about, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the real question for me is, can Steen, build a roster, do the trades and stuff like that? Obviously, you're going to get a little bit of experience shadowing Armstrong for the next couple of years, right? But, man, I don't know. Like, listen, as much as Armstrong, I do believe at this point should have gotten fired, before Berube. And I think we talked about in the podcast that we kind of like all concurred to the point that it's probably Armstrong fired Berube to protect his own job. You know what I mean?
He did.
But Armstrong has been one of the best GMs in all in the NHL since he's been with the Blues. He's been, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, again, he probably should have got fired last year. These last couple of years have been real rough. But can Steen really kind of duplicate what Armstrong has been able to do? I just don't know if people are going to take him seriously. So that's the problem with it, is like when you do trades and stuff like that, Doug Armstrong's been able to he has wave his magic wand and get these ridiculous trades that, have worked out very well for the Blues. But will they take, listen, I've watched enough that Patrick Waugh, for example, when he took over as coach for the Colorado Avs, no one took him seriously. The Avs had a good couple seasons and stuff like that, but nobody took him seriously. I'm trying to think of the other guy. Gosh, who's still in there? Carolina. It doesn't matter. But there's been several players, but nobody really takes them seriously. No one really gives them a shot. I mean, we all need to remember too that Wayne Gretzky, the best hockey player that's ever played, that saw the game at a completely different level that nobody will be able to touch. Was also the coach for the LA Kings for a while and had a losing record. So I don't necessarily think that just because you're a good player can mean that you can evaluate talent to that level. I think that there is a little bit of personality that comes into it. Listen, again, I've been around Steen when I worked for the Blues. I was around Steen for a while. I've gone, broke bread, had drinks with a lot of the guys, and with Steen was there as well. Steen's kind of an ass. I like Steen. Don't get me wrong. I love him as a hockey player, but he's kind of an ass when it comes to personally, personality wise. He rubs people the wrong way. And he kind of changed that up because I can see him, and this is just me being honest, I can see him fielding a call for a trade and him going, fuck no, rather than being like, nah, I think we're going to move on to a different direction. I think that he would take that personally, and hopefully, that's changed. I don't know. I haven't talked to the guy, talked to him. I haven't seen him obviously since he's retired. So maybe the personality changed. Maybe he's already picked up a few things here. Obviously, the Blues organization is going to make some stupid move by having him come in here and just blow everything up and stuff like that. But I am concerned. But I mean, as Donald Trump has shown, you don't have to have experience to get the job, right? The dude wasn't even a politician and became the president of the United States. So if he can come in and do the job, then cool, I'm okay with that. But I definitely think that there's a little level of concern and caution that should be around this, if that makes sense.
And I see your point, but I think that's why they'll have this transition period. And he's already in a role now. Obviously, that's not non-player role for sure, and he's doing some scouting for us. I think when you're a player, you're going to have more of that chip on your shoulder than when you're actually entering management. Your mindset changes. I'll just speak for myself. Going from an individual contributor, being a member of a team, to eventually managing individuals as well, managing my own team. Your mindset and your maturity evolves the more that you're in that role, and you realize that it's no longer about you. It's about what's the mindset is the team, the overall, the organization. And you no longer are putting yourself and your personality out there because you realize that there's more at risk. Before it's like, well, I'm just risking my own reputation. I'm only risking my own job, whatever. The fact is now I'm putting everybody in there, on the line. And that's, typical. I'm not saying that, maybe not, who knows? But usually that's what happens whenever people enter that kind of role. I should say good managers do. I should say they mature the more that they're in the role, and they realize that it's no longer about them. And because you remember those days, Josh, of I used to just say things off the cuff and I didn't give a shit, and obviously got myself in trouble numerous times, at work and whatnot. But now I've realized, hey, I
funny
can't
how
do
our
that.
roles reverse. Obviously you're in a completely different thing, but technically I was a manager, so I would have been, over you or whatever, and now you're my boss. I get it, but
I'm just talking about the fact of how I conducted myself in business back then versus now, and the fact is it's I realize that there's more at stake as far as letting my personality shine through, or my personality come through, as far as being an ass or whatever. You realize that those things are important to be diplomatic for the larger scale of things. We'll see how things progress, but I think that I'm hopeful that he will mature into that role over the next few years.
Yeah.
Go on, OJ.
I don't think they'd have given him the job if they didn't think he already, they've come out and said it, that they already think he basically possesses all the qualities you need to be a good GM, and he just needs a chance to actually get some experience. So, I'll trust.
Again,
Stillman,
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean,
yeah, I want him to succeed. Obviously, anything that's good for the Blues. And like
Sure.
I'm still a fan of Steen. So don't get me wrong. Like the personal experiences and what I've seen beyond behind like closed doors, so to speak, that isn't really that never it. I just saw two different sides of it. You know what I mean? So like, you know, there's a couple times I've seen him just kind of like just be rude and kind of go off on his own teammates and stuff like that. But also, he was a very good leader that was like trying to rein in people, be like, listen, we got to focus on the job. You know what I mean? And
you
he
need
was one of the big.
sometimes. He's not
100%.
afraid.
I get it.
And sometimes you need a leader that's not afraid to, kind of
He was a guy that was making a guy that was
that's-
making a lot of money and took a fourth line role because he knew it was the best thing for the team.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I get
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah,
again,
sure.
it's
I'm not
just-
trying to convince you one way or the other. I'm just saying that is a necessary requirement, though, in a leader, is someone that's not afraid to go up to a teammate and be like, dude, you're really not pulling your weight. You need to step it up. You know what I mean? Not be afraid to, I don't know what the situation was like, but I'm just saying, like, not afraid to rattle some cages, I guess, in that sense, for the greater good, I guess, is my point.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's why, like, it's dumb for fans to even talk about who they think should be the captain of a team or something, because, like, there's aspects of that responsibility that not everybody is suited for. Certainly not at any given point in their lives. You know what I mean? Some guys
I'll
just
give you a
meant to
perfect
be that.
example. I'll give you a perfect example, and it might piss some people off, might piss some listeners off, but I really don't care. Brett Hall was not a good leader. He shouldn't have been the captain of the St. Louis Blues. He was just the best player on the team. But he was not a vocal leader. He was not a guy. The guy got drunk all the time. Like, this is very well known. Like, and kind of like isolate himself from the team and stuff like that. Petro was a very good leader. Ryan O'Reilly was an okay leader after Petro left. I really thought it should have been Steen, but that's just me.
Steen,
I definitely don't.
Steen had
Sorry.
that bad back by then. Remember, he had like that back injury.
Was it that? I thought it was that year though. Like, I'm pretty sure it was that year that the bad back had happened. So like, to me,
Remember when the captaincy came up? That was one of the big knocks against Steen, was how much longer is he even going to be able to play?
Gotcha. Okay.
Like,
And again, that's why I'm trying to figure out the timeline. I thought it was that season that he started going having back injuries and obviously would have retired at the end of the year. I definitely did not think Tarasenko should have got it either. Obviously he was pissed about that, but again, is your point. Then Ryan O'Reilly probably would have been.
Well, he was injury prone as well, with that sense as well. So anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But
yeah, you could speculate all you want, is my point. But unless people actually know these guys and know their personalities, you probably can't really say.
Well, that's what. OJ. So I'll tell you, I was around the guys a lot.
On and off the ice. You know what I mean?
Well,
the
I'm talking
community
about
for everything. There's a lot of aspects to get put into that, or a lot of characteristics that get put into play there.
And that's my point.
In general, when people talk about it, because you see some people that get like offended that they didn't pick the guy they thought should get it and stuff. It's like, dude, calm down. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about.
but again, that was my point. Like, I've seen these guys and how they interact with each other and stuff like that off the ice, especially around that time frame. But I can tell you that I'm not in the locker room, so that's a completely different scenario and different setup. I'm not playing with those guys, so again, there's that it's a completely different element to it. So
yeah. If I was picking like a leader, I would probably pick somebody that's at least been thinking about what it takes to be a leader. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Probably be like if it had to be somebody with no experience, you know what I mean? Which
Right.
When you're picking a captain, a lot of the times it might be that might be the case. So like, but because it's all the stuff Adam was talking about. Like, there's a whole lot more that you got to think about that you may not even consider until you've actually started trying to put yourself in those situations already. And so you can make some really huge mistakes without even realizing it.
Right.
But
It's going to be interesting to see how Steen develops and stuff like that. Obviously, time will tell. We won't really know, until obviously Armstrong moves away and Steen takes over at that point. Let's transition here to the last topic that we have before we head to our sign off and talk about the Battlehawks. So it's kind of like they lost to the Brahmas 25 to 15 in the XFL conference game. Did not look good the entire time. Our offensive coordinator all season long was just fucking atrocious. But I at this point, I don't even really we don't really have the time to get into it. And we've talked about it before. I think it's just too depressing too. So I'm just going to ask the question, and Adam, I'm going to start with you here. Was the season successful or a disappointment for the Battlehawks?
So it was a mixed bag. Obviously, I think we ended up in the regular season. We ended up with 7-3 record overall.
7-3, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think from a regular season perspective, we did pretty well. I mean, obviously, we were near the top. We finished, tied technically with the Brahmas and we technically even got to host the division or whatever you want to call it, the
XFL
game,
conference champion,
XFL conference game. But it was a mix of some things as well, because there were a lot of missed opportunities and some promising developments that didn't necessarily pan out. A lot of very questionable, like you said, plays, and especially like you said, from an OC perspective, it was very confusing being at the games and wanting to know why we're basically passing the ball here and we're just running it 3rd and 10 on a regular basis, and we're not trying to move the chains. Overall, I think since they struggle with the consistency, that was the other part I wanted to bring up. We saw the defense lapsed from time to time. I think they were very strong in certain instances, and when they were on it, they were really on it. They looked great. But then there were certain games where, for example, the defense was just completely lapsed, and there was a lot of turnover happening as well with our offense. It just wasn't consistent. And I mean, it is what it is. It's spring football. I wasn't expecting NFL caliber, performance, but I think they showed some solid foundation to build upon. It's really going to be interesting seeing, who's around next season for sure, because there's a lot of turnover and churn that happens. A lot of these guys are going to wind up, possibly getting, picked up with some contracts into the NFL. I was super happy to see, Hakeem Butler, for example. I think overall had a damn good season, and I even, saw that the head coach for San Antonio gave him some props at the end of the game there, which I thought was awesome, because he definitely deserves, some kudos there. That I think he had a pretty good season. I think that overall our coaching is not great.
No.
Not at all.
There's a lot of times Anthony Beck, and you're like, why are you calling this timeout now? Why didn't you call it earlier? What the fuck are you doing?
And you saw the very poor time management as well in that last game.
Yep.
And I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we not at least, they were even questioning this every, like in the last 3 minutes. They're like, what are you doing? Why are you not, you're not managing the time and the clock at all. What are you trying to accomplish here? And it was embarrassing. It really was. So,
I'll tell you what, we had a guy jump off sides on 2. Like that doesn't happen. They go out there with the offense they do that. That doesn't even happen in college. In college,
that was stupid.
Jump off
that
sides.
Was really stupid.
So yeah, I did watch
that last game with a lot of stupid things that we were doing, a lot of stupid mistakes.
Yeah,
it was very hard to watch.
I think that my impression of Anthony Beck at this point is that he may be a good football coach, but I think he might be not enough of a disciplinarian, because the team makes little mistakes and stuff like that wind up costing them, right? I mean, they're good, so they're able to overcome that most of the time, but they made a lot of mistakes that cost them in this game that they couldn't. Yeah, I don't know. I just came away feeling like the main reason we lost is because we got out coached.
Yeah, we really did.
And AJ McCarron being injured, that also hurt us a lot too. So.
That did not help us one bit whatsoever. And the fact is, too, San Antonio, they were playing, well, actually the last two games, you can see they were playing very, very aggressive as well. And they were getting away with it.
Yeah. I don't know why they just.
I was not thrilled this season. I'm just going to say it now. I was not thrilled by the overall officiating by the UFL refs. I'm not saying, because, we didn't get our calls this way or the other. It's the inconsistencies, a lot of missed calls. I get it. They're not pro, they're not NFL level, blah, blah, blah. But, dude, it was
beyond the Battlehawks too, because I watched a few games, other games in the UFL, and it was across the board. It's like, how'd you not call pass interference there?
Yeah,
like this is obvious, it's stuff like that. It's a clear hold, no call. Yeah, I definitely think it was a step back from last year.
That's what I'm concerned about. Is I don't know how much money and time that The Rock really wants to put into this league. But I'm not impressed with the overall product, the direction they have gone. I feel like we've regressed a bit this season compared to the previous season, a bit overall. And I think
concerned. The merger kind of hurt us away. And that's actually
and they rushed that point of too. They rushed that merger and it was messy.
Yeah,
and that's the last point that I was going to bring up as well was, what is truly the state of the UFL? I mean, is St. Louis the only viable franchise that we have that's bringing in? Because listen, dude. So obviously, Adam, you and I bought our tickets for the UFL championship game, hoping that the Battlehawks were going to go.
Going to show up, yeah.
Yeah, and now we see all the resale tickets are going. They're literally selling tickets for $4 for the championship game. What does that tell you about your league?
And a lot of people are very upset as well at how that went. And the fact is, do people really want to see San Antonio play for the third week in a row? Not necessarily. We really don't. And so we're kind of just fed up with it. I think that's what it is. A lot of people. I mean, if we were if the fact is we didn't have a lot of the skin in the game and then things went down the way they did, it might not have been as bad, but I guarantee you the attendance. But I guarantee you the attendance next week is going to be very, very, very bad.
Yeah, I mean,
and the league really. I'm not saying that. They should have fixed the game that the Battlehawks get in by any means.
Absolutely not. Yeah,
but the league needed St. Louis to be in that championship game. They needed that for a more long-term success. They needed
because
where that fucking dome was loud and rocking. But now they're not.
This was my point. That I was talking to some people as well about was that why have it in St. Louis? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Why not?
Why don't they just have it hosted
in Birmingham? You know what I mean? You have your home field advantage. You know where you're going. At that point, you're going to sell more tickets that way.
For God's sake, it's the freaking UFL.
You don't need a neutral site. You know what I mean? You don't need a preconceived site. It would have worked out really well for the league if the Battlehawks would have been in it, because then all of a sudden you're going to see. I guarantee we would have broke a record. It would have been it probably would have been into 40, 45, somewhere around there. It would have been, we would have had to stack that house because people are going to show up and going to go. You know what I mean? But the fact is, this is out of town. And, if I'm in San Antonio, exactly right.
City, yeah.
Right. So, exactly right. So, even if I'm I'm a diehard Birmingham fan, I'm going, I ain't going to St. Louis to fucking watch them play. Why would I? I'm going to have to spend a couple $100s to go, the ticket's cheap, but it's St. Louis. It's on Father's Day. Fuck no. Why would I do that?
Have you seen the crowds in Birmingham? Have you seen the crowds in San Antonio? There is no crowd.
But that's what I'm saying.
I'm just telling you, you're not going to get people to show up to this, even more so the fact that it is in St. Louis and it is on Father's Day. You already
It's
have
going
that.
to be really interesting to see what the
embarrassing.
attendance number is going to be, because right now, some people are projecting that there's going to be 5,000 people for the championship game.
You might get
And
lucky to get that number. If you look,
Yeah.
if you bring up Ticketmaster right now, I challenge our listeners, bring up Ticketmaster right now and look at the purple or pink or whatever color that is. I don't know. I'm colorblind, I guess.
the resell, yeah.
Basically, the resale tickets. It's 3/4 of the dome.
Yep. So I don't know, man. And I think that this merger didn't go very well. I really believe
Mhm.
that the XFL would have been better off being separated from the USFL, but we'll see what ends up happening, right? I mean, I definitely don't think that this merger was a very good thing. We see it very sloppy. A lot of you look at like every time we played a USFL team, I'm just like, who the hell are these guys? Like, and it was weird because even like facing San Antonio, yeah, you hate San Antonio and you want to beat them, but at least they're an XFL team. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you kind
It
of
was
had that.
weird.
Okay, we're in the same, but yeah, it just felt really weird.
It was
So
weird.
I don't know. Maybe my feelings will change next year if they have a league, which I'm assuming they will. But we'll see what ends up happening, right? But
Yeah, I mean, I'll be back next year, but the question is with the league, realistically,
right, exactly right.
really bringing them in money. Well, I guess there's a couple things. They do have viewership in Birmingham, from my understanding. They just don't have anybody who shows up to the stadium, from what I understand. But
Yeah.
it's going to take more than a couple teams to carry the entire league.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We're going to see.
Well, in my opinion, and I think I said this last year, but in my opinion, the only way the XFL or the UFL now really succeeds long term is by becoming a developmental league that feeds the NFL. Like that's the only way it's going to happen. So.
And it felt like that more so last year.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Like we're an extension of the NFL, but now it's like it feels like it's changed. I don't know why. That's my perception. I don't really feel like they were also about, fan integration of the fans into it, and I don't know. Maybe it was a lot of the marketing. Maybe that's what part of the perception was, that they were doing differently. I don't know, but it just feels like they really kind of flubbed this season when it comes to a lot from the merger to how they're handling the fans, how they're handling this playoff situation. Well, last year they kind of fucked up the playoff situation too, in my opinion. But
yeah, that was ridiculous.
That was pretty embarrassing. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I guess they have a product and they're putting it out there, and we have some football in St. Louis. Whoopee.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm happy about that. I mean, it's cool to be able to go to a full, to an actual football game and enjoy it. And the fact is, every time I was in attendance, we won. That was cool.
Yeah.
We were consistent at home in the regular season. That was great.
We were 5-0 in the home. Yep.
Yeah, we were consistent. Maybe that was a problem, Josh, because we didn't go to that last game. Maybe that was the problem. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
We weren't there. We broke it. We broke the
right.
Sorry, folks. Anyway.
All right, guys, let's head to our sign off here. Adam, would you like to tell the good listeners on how they could interact with the show, ask us questions?
I would love to.
And suggest topics?
Reach out to us, as always, on Facebook.com/The Hometown Losers. Make sure you spell that LOUSERS. Or check us out on X.com/Hometown Losers. And once again, we would love to hear from you. So post your questions, comments, feedback. Anything you'd like to hear. We were always open to, that kind of and feedback from our listeners. We'd love to hear from you guys. On that note, I think we're going to send it over to OJ for this week's game of the week.
Yeah, so you got a Cubs series this weekend, but that's 3 games. So if I can only just pick one, we'll pick the St. Louis City FC Dallas game in Dallas on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. See if St. Louis City can actually get 3 points for a change.
That would be nice. Yeah. That would be awesome for sure.
That's for sure.
It'll be tough. Dallas is the kind of team that plays for a tie every game. So they're just sit back.
I'd like to see some wins. I'd like to see some wins with the Cardinals. I'd like to see some wins with City SC. I like to see that happen for sure. Let's
series because it's
W. Let's get the dub.
That's the thing. It's a Cubs series this weekend.
Yeah.
And in Chicago, need to win this.
Versus Chicago, we gotta wipe out Chicago here.
It's all like
to shine in Chicago.
Games. Early afternoon games because it's at Wrigley, of course. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that, OJ. And now here comes our favorite segment of every week. It's this week's
Stat Blast
with Josh.
All right, guys. So I got two just kind of crazy ones that I was able to dig out. I'll start with the easier one. Not the easier one, the more believable one, right? So the Jets have faced the Eagles. So the New York Jets have faced the Philadelphia Eagles 11 times in their franchise history. Yeah, they're 0-11 in those games, by the way. They have never beat the Eagles when they have faced the Eagles. They are one of the only teams, I think actually the only teams that has never won against the other team in NFL history. Yeah, ever.
Really? Wow.
Yes, they're 0-11 against the Eagles in all of their games they played against them.
That's crazy.
AET. Yeah.
Huh.
Crazy. Oh, you think that's crazy? This is even a crazier one. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, everyone knows him as, Ryan Fitzmagic, the awesome beard, the smartest guy, with the Wonderlic test and everything, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So obviously he was a journeyman. He played for a lot of different teams. So Ryan Fitzpatrick played the Eagles 7 different times in his career. Each time he played them was for a different team.
Oh, really?
But
well, I know he
to
was
go with that,
yeah.
Yeah. So to go with that, though, every single time for a different team, when he played the Eagles, he was also facing a different quarterback. In fact, I have the names here. So his first matchup was against Mike McMahon, then McNabb, then Vic, Sanchez, Bradford, Foles, and Wentz.
Huh.
It's a crazy, weird statistic.
So every time he faced them, it was with a different team and a different quarterback.
And facing a different quarterback. Yeah, super weird.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's crazy.
That is
just
wild.
A random weird statistic. But I thought that was very
cool. He's the only NFL player to have a passing touchdown with 8 different teams as well, I'm reading.
Yep.
I'll be damned. He has been everywhere.
That's a crazy.
He's the journeyman, for sure.
He is for sure. Crazy stats,
right.
But that's awesome.
Exactly
sure.
right.
Stat Blast is for.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, guys. Well, appreciate your time. For sure. Appreciate the listeners' time. Make sure to reach out to those socials. Let us know if there's any content that you want to see, or if you have any questions for us. Make sure to watch OJ's game of the week, as City is going to need some help from us to be able to cheer them along and hopefully pull out the 3 points. But as always, here we will see you next week on the Hometown Losers podcast. Have a great night, everybody.
Hey guys, this is Adam. Just want to say thanks for listening to the Hometown Losers podcast. We'll see you next week as we continue our discussion of St. Louis sports.